Digging graves by hand is a hard back-breaking job. When you look at a shots like this one, in which I'm carving a beautiful golden sand like it's butter, you may think that it is not so bad, but in reality, this kind of a perfect terrain is very rare, like 1 in 100 graves rare. Usually, I deal with all kinds of obstacles and unpleasant surprises, which I will discuss in detail in this video. I'll explain why we need to dig graves by hand in Poland, and show you how the walls of a crumbling grave can be secured. You'll see different kinds of terrain that I need to dig through, and I'll show you how to distribute the soil evenly in between the neighboring tombstones for optimal burial conditions later. Digging in our densely packed cemeteries is a real challenge and a great test of character. A lot of people give up before they dig their first grave, even up to the knee level. I really hated it in the beginning, but I grew to appreciate it, and I find it a humbling experience and a kind of a privilege at the same time. The grave needs to be dug on time, no matter how you feel about it. This one here was one of my worst ones. It was hot as hell, and those little devils were after me all the time, but after the initial shock, I regrouped and put things into second gear. There were tons of mosquitoes and a thick layer of dense shrubs and small roots. It took me over 4 hours to dig this grave and 1 hour to cut through this mess at the surface first. I alternate between different spots to add some diversity to my digging. When you struggle with one spot, it can become boring really fast. As you can see, there's clay directly at the surface and was found at the hip level later as well. It can often turn into a real nightmare, in which I curse the whole world while moving slowly, inch by inch with a pickaxe, carving tiny flakes in a concrete-like clay just to gather one shovelful. In this one, you can spot a thin layer of bricks and gravel, which thankfully was thin, but so what, when underneath you have dry compacted soil that you need to flake off with your shovel for hours. I remember that when this funeral finally took place, there was a very heavy rain, and all this soil was few times heavier and stuck together, so it was just a huge muddy mess that took forever to put in place and clean the whole area. Sometimes you can't even thrust the shovel properly because there are rocks and all kinds of small debris. I know what to expect when I get the cemetery quarter number, but I never know what I will actually find down there. Sometimes there are even remains which shouldn't even be there. It is always a big mystery, and that's what's most fascinating about it in my opinion. Let's talk about the obstacles. Apart from the mosquitoes and rocks, the roots are my number one enemy at the cemetery. This one was a piece of cake. Here's one of the bigger ones. It occupied half of the grave and took a few hours to rip it out, all by hand. This one is the biggest one ever. It required a lot of work and a helping hand from a mini excavator, which is very rare, as usually there is not enough space for even the smallest machinery to squeeze through at the Polish cemetery. Speaking of lack of space, just look at this for example. There is no chance for anything other than a shovel here. These hedges may be pleasant to the eye, but are terrible from a logistics point of view. Our cemeteries are so densely packed that it is often hard to even walk around the graves, never mind getting there with a loaded casket. Here's how a grave is set up for a burial. We step on this with a casket while everyone is watching. That's why I don't feel the need for extreme sports after a hard day's work. Anything can go wrong at any second, and mutual trust is at most important between the crew. Here's a selection of graves ready for burial. Notice the loose soil here. That's why that shallow grave must have been dug so wide. When the grave is deeper and the soil guarantees collapse, we use wooden shoring, which decays after a few decades, like here for example. The shoring prevents the grave from collapsing, but it's expensive, so we use it only when it's absolutely necessary. This is how it looks right before the burial. When you dig a grave by hand, you need to foresee the future and figure out how to fill it up later the easy way. So it is important to place the dug up soil in strategic places, meaning as close to the hole as possible without the soil seeping back into the grave. Here I made a mistake by spreading the soil far too wide, for which I got scolded heavily and never made the same mistake again.
Getting hot and there's a lot of mosquitoes here, so and my back hurts. Ay, ay, ay. And this is how you do it.
Well, I hope that now you at least roughly know what I need to deal with when I'm digging graves. Although it is often very hard, I really enjoy it, but maybe because I'm not doing it every day. I omitted the part about the tools and techniques, so I will talk about them some other time. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if so, then you've came to the right place because there is more. If you think that I'm worthy of a like or a subscription, it is always much appreciated. Thanks for watching. See you next time.